Good afternoon, everyone. This is Noah Garrity recording from my home in Broadview, and today I'm going to be giving my recording for my spring 2020 senior crit. Now, to start off, and I assume everyone here has had an idea of sorts, but wondered if it was physically possible, but they had no way to convey it artistically. I can relate, as I faced a similar problem in middle school. However, when the answer came to me, it came in the form of not classwork, but rather comic books. Now, a lot of artists can say they grew up with comic books, but it's these three comic books that I found the most influential. I grew up with Transformers by IDW, Marvel's Superheroes, and Archie's Sonic the Hedgehog. Not only did I find them entertaining, but they were very influential, especially on a personal level. Now, it's because of these issues that I wanted to create my own comic book alongside my friends in seventh grade. We started this idea of a fan comic with our own characters, abilities, and locations, and so many more aspects. And for the art style, however, we decided to keep it simple and wanted to mirror the aesthetic of Japanese anime and manga. Of course, it was all we knew at the time, but it deviated from the more commonly seen Western aesthetic utilized by big publishers like Marvel, DC, IDW, and Archie Comics. However, middle school dreams have this problem of fading away, especially in high school, and overall interest in the project declined over the years. Now, not many people would even consider comic books to be very thought provoking, let alone art. Some would say it's juvenile entertainment at best, and while it's amusing, not capable of dealing with serious content. In fact, my mom even made this argument when I told her what I wanted to do for my senior project. A bit ironic. Now, this is due to many things, but one of the more prominent reasons is that, or at least there's this illusion that comic plots have this problem of being predictable and formulaic. And what I mean by that is there's this problem or rather series of problems that are near impossible for the normal person and require the involvement of an enhanced individual such as Superman or Wonder Woman to solve the problem and save the day. And in some cases that is correct. However, in Japan, which has a more communal culture than America, manga has this way of telling stories of several characters working together to support each other. The fact you could see such a cultural difference in Japanese and American comic works would make one question that comics are merely amusement at all. For this example, one of my favorites, Mobile Suit Gundam. The original series involves a cast of characters that are both a mixture of civilians and fresh recruits who are thrown in the middle of a war between Earth and those who migrated into space, calling themselves Space Noids or the Principality of Zeon. And while they're being pursued by the space colony's military forces, they realize that there are no heroes in war on both sides, and only they just have to deal with ordinary people. And they're reminded of this fact, despite having to use outlandish weapons that were originally made of civilian use, particularly their mechs. Another example I want to bring up is called Sailor Moon. Now, this story revolves around the group of teenage girls being magically enhanced and charged with protecting the solar system from villains all around. Well, this I bring up this example because, well, one reason is that my mom actually grew up with this back in her high school days. She said she enjoyed this series and particularly the idea of teenage girls also acting as vigilantes, calling it the Japanese take of Wonder Woman, of which she thoroughly enjoyed. Over time, however, there have been instances of Western media actually taking influence on Japanese culture, such as the highly iconic Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Marvel's Japanese inspired Big Hero 6 before Disney acquired them. In the West, Artist Spiegelman's graphic novel Mouse is based on interviews of his father's experience in Nazi Germany, where the Jews themselves are depicted as mice, of which they were referred to Jews as vermin, under the control of Nazis who are depicted as predatory cats. And it's this graphic novel that actually won the Pulitzer Prize in 1992. Now, for those who don't know, in long story short, the Pulitzer Prize is an outstanding achievement in media, ranging from literature to musical composition, both printed and online in the United States. But to the main point, Spiegelman said in recent interviews, comics at the time were not taken seriously. There was no, at least not during when he was growing up, and he wanted to change that using the story of Mouse and his interview with his father. Now, that just means that comics can deal with very significant issues, as they can give audiences the psychic distance to allow readers to deal with overwhelming odds and difficult issues in their history. In this case, Mouse for the Western audiences, and for the Japanese audiences, there was their own called The Grave of the Fireflies. Now, this was not a comic book, might I want to add, but this was an animated movie that told the story of two children that are forced to rely on each other to both survive and remain together after being separated from their parents in the aftermath of the firebombings of World War II in Japan. Now, the arts, comics included, as I said, are able to convey the cultural impact on lives of individuals by exploring their reactions to events both large and small around them, real issues that the everyday person can face in society. Now, my own comic deals with a more personal loss. In my senior year of high school, my German Shepherd by the name of Jacques sadly passed away at the age of 12. My comic has many parallels from this experience. Now, at the heart of this story is a metaphysical question. Does the spiritual soul exist in a physical sense? And what I mean by that is, can we, as people who are living, prove that the soul exists with evidence and facts? Well, I know a handful of people on who they claim they had personal accounts of supernatural phenomenon. I always took it with a grain of salt. Um, but in this case, my comic unfolds with a series of scenes of a boy reminiscing happy experiences, what that ultimately culminate in the dog's death at an old age. In the aftermath, the boy's grief causes his grades to plunge as he works on his comic about his dog's life, and as a result of his grades, a domestic argument between him and his mother erupts between the two. He escapes the house to a park where he and his dog once visited numerous times, both reminiscing and grieving. Now ultimately he returns home and the confrontation between him and his mother is resolved over dinner. Now, as he retires to his room, thinking about whether his dog could possibly materialize in some manner, his dog does so while he falls asleep, appearing as a luminous specter over him. Now, while this marks the start of many stories to come in my comic, I wanted to keep this question ambiguous to the readers, so that way they can formulate their own opinions.